On today's show, the Game 2 Celtics return. Do the Celtics need more from Jayson Tatum in these playoffs? Plus, the Mavericks even up the series against the Thunder, and the Suns are making a coaching change. All of that and more on today's Locked On NBA.
You are Locked On NBA, your daily NBA podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
To Locked On NBA Friday. Wes Goldberg here with Tony East. However, you're tuning in on YouTube, Odyssey, or your favorite podcast app, thanks for making Locked On NBA your first listen every day. Today's episode is brought to you by Prize Picks, the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNBA. Use the code all lowercase LockedOnNBA for a first deposit match up to $100. We'll talk about Cleveland's surprising win in Boston and whether or not the Celtics need more from their star player, plus the Suns making a coaching change. But let's start, Tony, in Oklahoma City, where the Mavericks shot 49% from three. They win the game 119-110, tie the series as it goes to Dallas. Was this as simple as Dallas just making their threes, or what did you see in this one?
That is a big part of it. Specifically, Mr. Tim Hardaway Jr., I think that a factor here is the timeliness of what happened in this game, too. The Thunder took a lead in the third quarter. It looked like they had all the momentum again. It was their only lead of the game. And then Tim Hardaway Jr. comes in and was the best player on the court for either team for pick the amount of time, 4, 5, 6, 7 minutes, whatever. He made everything. He went on a solo 10-0 run, or 11-0. I think he made the free throw. Like, it was unbelievable. And the Mavs never gave the lead back. And that's kind of a microcosm of what they did. But the thing about the Mavs and why I think they're going to be so tough to beat for any team in the playoffs is, like, when you have Kyrie and Luka, you're going to generate a bunch of good threes, right? Tim Hardaway Jr. specifically were not the easiest, but like PJ Washington made 7, and they were almost all so open and in the corner, right? Like, this can happen anytime for them. So on one hand, yeah, it's like, yes, they made their threes, but they're going to get good threes every single game. This can happen anytime against Dallas.
Quick aside on the Tim Hardaway Jr. little 10-0, 11-0 spurt, whatever it was. My favorite part of that was how he was on the court for different parts of it with Luka or Kyrie, and every time the ball would be brought up, he was like, hey, I'm on a run, and he would do that thing where he gets just parallel to the basket with both hands out, palms forward, like, give me the ball. And I'm like, yo, Kyrie Irving's got the ball, Luka Doncic has got the ball. Like, I know you're hot, but it's their team still. So just like my little favorite thing about that, just love the confidence. You're right about the streaky shooting. This is how the Dallas Mavericks are built, right? At the same time that PJ Washington goes 7 for 11 from three, or Hardaway goes 2 for 4 and goes on that scoring run. On that same night, Derrick Jones Jr. 1 for 5 from 3-point range. Kyrie Irving missed both of his 3-pointers, right? You've got guys who are not hot from 3-point range, but they've sort of decorated this roster with enough guys who are streaky where I guess the bet is 1 or 2 of them hit on a night-to-night basis, and boom, you're racing. You know what I mean? So
Yep.
You had all that. Luka on a little bit of a bum ankle, just spoon-feeding everybody exactly the shots
whole
they needed.
Mavs team on a bum something. What is going on? They're all limping. They all can't move their
Playoffs,
arm.
baby.
What is happening to the Mavs?
Playoffs, baby. The Thunder are weirdly healthy. And I
Yes,
say
they
that knocking on wood, okay? Hopefully people can hear me in the audio. I say that knocking on wood. I wish no injury to any player. But they are weirdly healthy at this stage of the season. So I do think like the 3-point shooting was certainly part of it. They go 18 for 37 overall, 49% shooting. Oklahoma City 10 for 30, so they make about a third of their threes. And you look at the final score, and you're like, yep, that's about right. That sounds about like what the difference is. I will say this. I do think beyond just the 3-point shooting and just sort of the inherent variance and all of that, the Thunder do need to clean some things up. They need to clean up the turnovers. Too many lazy passes. Too many easy things for Luka and these other guys to just jump passing lanes, steal, and get back in transition, get easy buckets in transition. They had 10 turnovers in this game, 18 points off of those turnovers for Dallas. Of those 10 turnovers, 8 were steals. So basically the easiest kind to turn into points, right? You're already on the run. You're on the break. Nobody can catch up with you. So they need to clean that part of it up. Was there anything else you saw from the Thunder that they need to clean up?
The Thunder need to clean up their starting lineup. I think
where I wanted to take this. Yep.
I think tonight is the last time Josh Giddey starts in the playoffs. Maybe a different opponent could make it possible, but and the lack of spacing, you know, in a game-to-game regular season environment, you can get away with it. And he's a talented passer. and he was really good to close the season, but he played 10 minutes and 46 seconds, and they lost those minutes by 20 points tonight. The next worst plus minus for any player on the Thunder was Isaiah Joe at -9, right? Like, that says a lot about how bad those minutes went. So Cason Wallace was good in this game. Isaiah Joe's been good for them for forever, right? Like, they were going to do it eventually. Like, just do it. You'd rather do it early than do it late. So I think that is a thing for the Thunder. And credit the Mavs. They're doing well with like the defensive game plan with Giddey involved. And Chet was not, Chet was like, his plus minus looks good. I didn't think Chet was particularly good in this game. He wasn't making his shots. You didn't feel him as much on defense as we normally do. 4 turnovers. I don't know if that's a one-off thing, but I thought Gafford played very well. So getting Chet a little more Chetty in some way, whether that's him getting going from the perimeter again, being more impactful on the defensive end because he's not just getting run over by a Mavs big. That'll be important for the Thunder as well. But
not the Chet factor that he was in game 1, right? Not so much in game 2, but
is it you who started this in my head?
I'm doing it. Yep. I think I started it. I'm taking credit for it. I don't see anybody else doing it, so I got it. I want to go back to the starting lineup because it is where I wanted to sort of steer this conversation. You're absolutely right. Josh Giddey. I wasn't so much on this has to happen eventually, although if you would have made me place a bet on it, I would have wagered, it's going to happen eventually, and it probably does. But the passing is really important. His height is really the size. The rebounding is an underrated part of him. He's kind of quietly one of the best rebounders on the Thunder. We know they're not a great rebounding team. So I wasn't fully like whole hog, they got to do it. What are they doing? But everybody kind of knew there was going to be a point where they had to do it. And I think we reached that point today. This was the night we reached it. He got played off the court within 6 minutes of this game starting. They went up going to little Jalen Williams, who's actually big Jalen Williams, but we call little Jalen Williams big Jalen Williams now because he's the better one, and so now the big one is little one. So the other Jalen Williams comes in halfway through the first quarter, and they kind of do this double big thing, and that worked, and it was interesting because they had Chet Holmgren hang out by the basket, and Luka and Kyrie were getting to the basket all the time, and so I thought that was an interesting wrinkle. But then Daigneault comes out and has Aaron Wiggins starting in Giddey's place to start the second half, and at that point I'm like, oh, we're done. We've seen basically Giddey. I wasn't even sure if he was going to play in the second half. He did play a couple more minutes in the second half, came in halfway through the third quarter, but it was interesting to see Dallas's process of playing Giddey off the floor, because in game 1 they actually didn't start with Gafford on Giddey the way that they had in the regular season where they had their centers on Giddey. They actually started with Luka on Giddey, and then the Thunder were like, all right, cool, that's fine. We know exactly what to do in this situation. They just involved Giddey in every on-ball action, ended up getting Luka switched onto Shea and a bunch of other players, and it worked. And they're like, and then the Mavericks were like, nope, that didn't work. Put the center back on Giddey, and then Giddey ends up getting played off the floor in that game too. I played like 16 or 17 minutes. Back to the plus-minus point that you made, Tony. Josh Giddey is a -27 in this series.
Wow.
The Thunder have been outscored by 27 points with Giddey on the court in this series. The starting lineup change has to happen. I would bet. I would be actually surprised at this point if it wasn't the case in game 3. The only question is who. I'd probably just bet on Aaron Wiggins because they started him in the second half in his place. But maybe they go Isaiah Joe. Maybe they could go Cason Wallace. But I think for the integrity of the rotation, it's almost easier to just sort of slot Wiggins in there. But it could be either one. It doesn't really matter.
Mavs are bigger outside the guards. I think Wiggins is a good shout. And we've already seen Daigneault be reflexive with his rotations. Like the Will Chet front court was like not that much of a thing in the regular season, but the Mavs play big. They can get away with it. They're going to it. And Shea started the fourth quarter. They never do that. He usually rests then. They were like, yeah, we need him. And Giddey didn't play at all in the fourth quarter. Like all the signs are when the chips are down, they know what they need to do. Also, like big picture, they were 5-0 before this game, giving up 95 or less every game, 119 for the Mavs. That's not just shooting. Thunder have got to defend better. And credit to the Mavs and Luka and his one usable foot for just tearing him up. He was hopping around, and that dude, the second he caught the ball, was ready to rip that 3 in, baby. That was quite the play.
Shout out to the Mavericks. You steal home court. This is a fun series. It is awesome definitely a series. Really excited to see where this thing goes. But was not the only series that got evened up tonight. Another torrid shooting night as the Cavs steal home court advantage in Boston. We'll talk about it next here on Locked On NBA. Today's episode of Locked On NBA is brought to you by our friends at Prize Picks. Prize Picks is America's #1 fantasy sports app with more than 3 million members. It's the easiest and most exciting way to get in on the action while you're watching your favorite sports and players. All you got to do is pick more or less than on 2 or more player stats and watch the winnings roll in. March is over, but the biggest moments in college basketball tip off the month of April. Be a part of the action on Prize Picks for both men and women's college basketball. I'm reading the wrong copy here, so let's just go ahead and scroll down past the college basketball tournament. You can now win up to 10x your money on Prize Picks with as little as 4 correct picks. You can turn $10 into $1,000 with basketball, hockey, and college basketball entries today on Prize Picks, America's #1 daily fantasy sports app. Prize Picks has something for every sports fan, from basketball to hockey to League of Legends and everything in between. Do you play League of Legends? What even is that? That's a game, right?
High school Tony played League of Legends. Current Tony does not.
Very good. You could pick LeBron, Caitlin Clark, Connor McDavid, Jude Bellingham. Is that a League of Legends person?
You're asking the wrong guy.
You can do that all in the same.
I will
Prize
Google
Picks
it while
is
you
the
keep
best
talking.
way to get action on sports in more than 30 states across the country, including California, Texas, and Georgia. This is the best ad read we've ever done. Download the app today and use the code LOCKEDONNBA for your first deposit match up to $100. Repeat. Download the app today and use the code LOCKEDONNBA for a first deposit match up to $100. Prize Picks. It's daily fantasy made easy. Today's episode is also brought to you by our friends at eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience, the formula for winning championships, is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your #1 ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber and not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit, only available to U.S. customers. Back here on Locked On NBA. Thanks for making Locked On NBA your first listen every day. Turned into Ron Burgundy there for a little bit on that ad copy, but that's what you get in the playoffs, Tony. It's been late nights, a lot of basketball, a little crazy night in the NBA. The Cavs go into Boston, beat the Celtics 118-94. We even had garbage time at the end of this, and not the way that you would think.
A lot.
Yeah.
A lot.
Yeah, saw some guys I've never seen before playing for Boston. The Cavs, they were led by Donovan Mitchell. He scored 23 of his 29 points in the second half. Another quiet Jayson Tatum game. Do you want to start with the Cavs or the Celtics?
Oh, the Cavs. Oh, my God.
Okay, start with the winners.
Oh,
Very good.
You got to start with the winning team. This is a beef I have with other podcasts when it's like the Timberwolves sweep the Suns. It's like, let's talk about the Suns. I'm like, no. Let's talk about the team that swept the other team. Okay. As one of the few remaining people, it's not few, there's a lot. Look, the waning group of the Evan Mobley fan club had a great night. We were very excited about what we saw from Evan Mobley, who his defensive impact, amazing. He also made threes and had 5 assists. He was awesome on both ends of the floor. Massive for the Cavs that he could play that way. We'll ignore that he was the only center available and just say that he played really well, and that was significant. He was not this good in game 1. That was obviously huge for the Cavs, and him and Mitchell were both over plus 30 in this game. They were both fantastic. Mitchell has been on a ridiculous heater since game 6 of that Magic series, honestly, the whole playoffs. When those two can link up and actually have two-man action, and then they also get good shooting from the rest of the players who start around them, the Cavs offense is pretty good, and that hasn't been the case very much in this postseason. Strus has not shot it well. He didn't again, but Okoro made his only 3, and Garland was 4 for 5. They are really hard to beat when they're humming in that way, and they have a threatening two-man game, and that is what guided them in a big way. And the Celtics did not shoot well. Help their defense a little bit.
We'll stay with Cleveland for a second. You're right. I don't want to say that they're better without Jared Allen.
No.
But are they better without Jared Allen? You know, like there's something to be said about they're better with the one big because it just makes it cleaner, right? It's not as complicated. The spacing's a little bit better, and when it's Donovan Mitchell just getting that screen from Mobley and then jumping into his action and spraying out to shooters, which is basically what he did the first half. Donovan Mitchell was the facilitator. Second half, Boston changed up their schemes a little bit. Instead of dropping and kind of baiting them into it, they pressed up on him, and he was able to turn the corner against that defense and kind of able to get to his spots a little bit more. It'll be interesting to see how the Celtics kind of adjust their defenses going forward on Donovan Mitchell, but it just cleans it up. And then Darius Garland, very happy to just not do anything. You know what I mean? Like, Garland's very cool just taking 8 shots, and I don't even mean that as like a diss. Like, he's super unselfish, and he sees that Donovan Mitchell has it going. He's like, cool, I'll stay here. If you need somebody to make a shot, I'll be here. And he shot 63% in this game, got 7 rebounds, 4 assists, like did the things he had to do, but mostly stayed out of the way while Donovan Mitchell cooked, right? He's a sous chef. He's like, if you need me, I'm here. I'm here cutting mushrooms if you need me. So it was just a nice, clean game, but it was all powered by Donovan Mitchell. And I know he only had 29 points. It felt like 49 points. It felt like so many more points. And then you compare what he did to Tatum. Tatum had 25 points. Tatum only had 4 fewer points. But if Mitchell's 29 felt like 49, Jayson Tatum's 25 felt like 5, right? It just, like, I think all points are created equal in the aggregate, but it doesn't really feel like that sometimes. You know what I mean? It was just another quiet Tatum night.
It was. I was going to get there. Let me give you one crazy stat first. Every Cavs player who played, like, in the rotation shot 50% or better.
That's
only
good.
One Celtics player shot 50% or better in this game. That's crazy. Like,
Sam
the
Hauser.
whole Cavs team was doing their thing. Shout out to Peyton Pritchard showing up tonight. Al Horford led the starters at 4 for 9, though. Yeah, Tatum is an obvious place to go. Look, Tatum's really good. Even when he's not scoring, he doesn't have to because they're loaded, right? But, like, at some point, this is going to – I mean, it's already becoming a thing, right?
It's a thing.
10 boards in the playoffs. That's nice. 5.4 assists, good. Like, turnovers aren't that high. They're crushing in his minutes. It's really hard to nitpick a guy that good. Shooting 40.7% and 27% from 3. Like, that has to be better. And, like, he has to make shots. He's their best player. They've been able to get around it, but, you know, it's hard when he's 7 for 17 in a game.
And it's
like
hard
this.
when Derek White isn't shooting 50% on 9 3-pointers a game,
Gosh,
which was what
he
he was
like,
doing coming into this game. He
like 20 for his last 39 or something insane. Jaylen Brown wasn't hitting. Like, yeah, it all came together.
Wild. Yeah, Jaylen Brown went 0 for 6. So, you know, Tatum was able to, and I hate using this word, but kind of able to hide behind the success of Brown and White, which was awesome for Boston. Like, it's like, cool, these guys are ascending and doing stuff. But now, like, with those guys not, it's sort of up to you as the star player to be like, okay, they don't have it, let me pull them up. And this has been a storyline for a couple of weeks now in Boston, right? The Celtics reporter, like, Boston-based media is asking, you know, does it matter that he's not scoring a lot and that the shooting percentages aren't where it is? And they'll tell you, like, well, his screening is really impactful and his rebounding and his playmaking. And you're like, all right, sick, dude. Agree. Like, you wanted to be an MVP candidate, man. Like, screening? Like, come on. Like, miss me with that. At some point, you gotta score the points. And
I agree.
And he does have a history of not in big moments. And I think that's maybe why these questions are coming, because it is a little unfair, but he does have a history of maybe not stepping up in the biggest moments when the Celtics need him. You think about the 22 finals when he wasn't able to match Steph, and maybe that was too much to ask, but look, man, it happened. And so now he's getting some of the criticism. Can I read you some quotes from the postgame?
You can. Can I? Okay, hang on. First? I have to say he had 50 in a closeout game to get to that finals, even though I get that, yes, your thesis is mostly correct.
Yeah, he's got to do more. And it just seems weird because he's been lapped now by Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and Anthony Edwards, who are not like, those are, I think people would perceive them as better players than Jayson Tatum right now, and they're having way better postseasons. Those guys went ahead and grabbed the moment, and Tatum really hasn't for a team that's supposed to be this dominant number 1 seed. I'm not saying they're not, but it just sort of feels like Tatum is not doing as much as you might have thought. All right, the quotes. This is from Jayson Tatum. That's the narrative that you might see on TV. We didn't have the coach of the year. We didn't have the MVP. We only had 2 all-stars. We know we got a good team. We're not perfect. The world thinks we're never supposed to lose. We're supposed to win every game by 25. It's not going to be like that all the time. We don't expect it to be easy. It's going to be a fun rest of the series, and especially come Saturday. What do you make of those quotes?
Ooh. Just a little scrappy underdog Celtics, huh? You know, Out here.
Oh, boo-hoo. We didn't get the coach of the year. We don't have an MVP. How can we be a
Golly.
super team? Is anybody
Yeah,
calling them a
like,
super team?
they're pretty dang good.
They're good. They're a really good team, but I wouldn't like put them in the super team. Like,
I don't either.
right?
But I should. Like, their net rating and their win totals, like, yeah, this is one of the best teams ever. Like,
Right.
okay, I guess.
I guess I just consider a super team more like the Super Friends, where it's like
Yeah.
you know all the names and you put them together. It doesn't necessarily mean they're gonna like. I would consider Phoenix more of a super team than Boston, just because of the names that are associated with Phoenix. And they failed. They're not as good as the Celtics. Now we're just doing.
I hope that gets aggregated. I
It'll be
had
the
one
first
more.
thing
Oh
tonight.
yeah, Wes. I have to ask,
Please do.
since you covered the Miami Heat, what happened the last time the Celtics maybe flubbed a game 2 at home in this postseason?
They went ahead and won the next 3, and that's probably. And if I had to bet,
Dominated the next 3.
I would bet that that's what happens,
I
right?
agree.
And like, I'm not worried about the Celtics at all, but I do think the Jayson Tatum thing is just something worth bookmarking. It's they're not gonna get, like, no disrespect to the Cavs, but they're not gonna get tested in a real way in this series. They're still gonna win this series. In the next round, who knows what
They
happens
might
with
not get
Jalen
tested
Brunson?
again.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but if they make it to the finals, they will be tested by whoever comes out of the West. And you're going to need a big Jayson Tatum game. And it's not going to be cool if he's just screening and rebounding and passing to other teammates. He's going to have to go out and score and take over a game at least a few times if the Celtics are going to really win a championship. And so I'm not sounding alarms. I'm just a thing that I'm monitoring. Just a thing. That's it. That's all we're doing here. Just things. Coming up, does the Suns coaching change really matter? We'll talk about that next. Today's episode of Locked on NBA is brought to you by Monopoly Go. All right, game off. We got to pause here to talk more about Monopoly Go. I know what you're saying. Flag on the play. You already talked about that, but there's just so much good stuff in this game. In Monopoly Go, you can team up with friends for timed tournaments where you work together to build up each other's boards. The more you win together, the more awesome prizes you unlock, and there's so much to get, like unique stickers that you could trade with friends and complete albums for big prizes, cool new playing pieces to travel the boards with, hilarious emojis for taunting friends when you smash their buildings or heist their vaults. Plus, Monopoly Go feels new and exciting every day with constantly changing tournaments and challenges. A ton include their own unique mini games like digging for treasure or robot Panchenko machine. And there's always new timed events that help you win big, like massive multipliers for everything you win or rent frenzies. There's always something fun to discover at Monopoly Go. So get off the bench and go download it for free on Google Play or the App Store. Game on. Thanks again for making Locked on NBA your first listen every day. Before we get to our weekly countdown, the Suns are making a coaching change. They fired Frank Vogel on Thursday and reportedly are closing in on former Bucks coach Mike Budenholzer to take over as their new head coach. My question to you, Tony, is how much do you think a coaching change even really matters? How much can it help the Suns?
You know how Jalen Williams, J-Dub barks in games? We need to make goat sounds for scapegoat coaches. If we had prepped better, that would have been really funny. Yeah,
great.
here. So I'll give you two answers. One is no, not very much, right? Like that team, the real problem is like they can't make material changes to their roster no matter who the coach is. So like, yeah, they can change their identity, but it's the same team next year, right? It's basically the same team. Maybe they can like somehow steal a minimum point guard that makes sense for them and be a little better, I guess. But Kevin Durant's older and Brad Beal's older and Devin Booker's older. Devin Booker's still young, but like that's the reality for the Suns. So they can't get better. And this is the only way I get why they think they can get better because of those roster constraints I just discussed. Here's what I think about Mike Budenholzer. Mike Budenholzer keeps stuff simple, man. Like his defensive schemes are simple. His offensive stuff gets to the point. And I don't know that is the like, ooh, awesome, trendy coach, but like it works, man. Like the Bucks just ran through people for years and they struggled in the postseason. Outside of the year they won the championship, and he was very often criticized for his lack of adjustments. But the Suns need the first part. They need to be good in the regular season.
Right.
And now. And so I actually think it could matter a little bit, but without being able to change their team at all, it's hard to see what it's going to look like.
That's kind of where I'm at too. I understand why the Suns did it because they had to make some kind of change after this season, and the only real material change that they could make was to the head coach because of the cap constraints that they have with this roster, because Bradley Beal has a no trade clause, because you're not trading Kevin Durant. You're not. If you move any of these guys, you might as well just shut the whole thing down, blow it up, and start over. And they're not doing that, right? And they shouldn't do that, by the way.
They shouldn't.
So this
They're
was
super
really the
team,
only
as we
move.
just determined.
This was the only move on the board. If you're gonna fire Frank Vogel, which I'm not sure you needed to do in the first place, but if you had to do it, then hiring Mike Budenholzer was as good as a coach as you can get, right? And so we'll see what happens. You're right about the simplification in the structure. This is the guy who, when he was coaching the Milwaukee Bucks, used to tape off parts of the court and say to his players, stand here, and you shoot threes from these spots.
But that's what I think. That's what I think is interesting is he loves spread it out, take the threes, and they have a lot of natural.
You know who doesn't like the right?
Guys,
Their star players don't like to do that.
Yeah.
Kevin Durant wants to hoop in the mid-range. Devin Booker, Bradley Beal, they always want to do the mid-range stuff. And I think, to me, the most important thing for Phoenix, and maybe if Mike Budenholzer can do this, great, but it's going to come down to the star players. It's going to come down to KD, Devin Booker, and Bradley Beal. They need to be more engaged in doing the little stuff. And they cannot look at their teammates the way that they looked at their teammates all season and said, you're responsible for spacing the floor for me from three. You're responsible for defending. You're responsible for rebounding. You're responsible for diving on loose balls. They got to do that stuff because I don't know how many, like, they could sign like 100 Josh Okogis. It's not going to help. They got to do it, you know? And we could talk about, kind of get a new backup center. Drew Eubanks wasn't super good, and maybe you go get like a little point guard minimum guy and whatever. Like, who cares? Like, that stuff's not going to matter when you're playing the Minnesota Timberwolves or the Denver Nuggets or the Oklahoma City Thunder. It's going to matter whether or not your 3-star players can do stuff together and not just do stuff separate. And so it's going to take some sort of powwow between that trio and figuring out, okay, what's the pecking order? What are our responsibilities that we could divide up, and how are we going to really attack this season and try to be better than we were last season?
Wait, you don't think the key to the Suns is Ish Smith and Cody Zeller? That
maybe Ish Smith. I hadn't thought about that. All right, it is Friday, which means it's time to count down to the weekend with our weekly power rankings.
A system player. I am a system player.
Go power rankings. Go power rankings.
All right, it's Friday, which
I'm
means
not a
it's time to
system
count
player.
down
I
to
am
the
a system
weekend.
player.
Don't do it again. Don't need you. It's just killing it on this show with no technical difficulties. We're doing the top 5 retread coaches. What is a retread coach? It's a coach that's had multiple jobs and keeps getting hired, even though that he gets fired from other jobs. I'm defining this to kind of put some parameters around this. This coach has to have a job currently, sort of, or recently, and has had 3 different head coaching jobs in the last 10 years. Okay.
wow.
So it's a longer list than you would think.
I was gonna say, are there 5 of these?
There are.
I'm fascinated.
Number 5, Monty Williams.
Wow.
Number 4.
I don't.
Go ahead.
Keep going.
No, that's fine. You got an opinion?
Yeah, I just don't know how I feel about Monty Williams because I get that he did a lot of stuff that was really confusing to me, but I think he's a really good coach of good teams and maybe not a very good coach of developing teams. Like some coaches are the opposite, and so it's not his fault he got hired by a crummy team. He took the money. I don't know.
Take the money, man.
But
I have no problem with it. I don't hate all the coaches on this list. People like these.
But he's the Pistons coach, so he's got to be 5.
He's got to be 5. Exactly. Sorry, buddy. Them's the breaks. But hey, enjoy your 160 million or whatever it was. Number 4, Doc Rivers.
Okay, yeah, I'm okay with that.
Number 3, Frank Vogel.
Oh, that's why you threw the recent line in. That threw me off.
Yeah. Number 2, Mike Budenholzer.
Man, you're on fire. Does anyone get a shorter shaft than Frank Vogel?
No. Well, he should never have gotten fired by the Pacers, honestly. And
3 of his 4 stops.
Right.
Shouldn't have got
The
fired,
Pacers, the Magic, the Lakers, and then the Suns.
The Magic.
The Lakers
didn't go
really
well.
screwed up. The Magic was his Monty Williams era.
Exactly. I was gonna say the Magic is my Monty Williams point. Frank Vogel with good teams is good, but he's not a developer.
I already said Mike Budenholzer at number 2.
Yes.
All right, we'll do that again. Number 1, do you know who it is?
Oh, I don't, but I'm going to try to guess before you say
5,
it.
4, 3, 2. Tom Thibodeau.
Oh, boy.
Chicago, Minnesota, New York.
I forgot about his
forgetting anybody.
Minnesota stint. I scrolled right past him.
How could you?
What a coach.
Your top 5 retread coaches, agree or disagree? Would you reorder any of those?
I like that order. I think I'd it's hard to say. Like if Monty and Doc Rivers had the same team, I might have Monty above there. I don't know.
That's fair. That could happen. But he coaches the Pistons. So.
What other? Well, you said there's more than 3. That surprised me. What other options are there?
I already forgot. There wasn't a lot.
Quinn Snyder has 2.
Yeah, that's why I had to get it to 3. Like Quinn Snyder is one more job away from being a retread coach.
Who's this guy? The Lakers coach. His name's vacant. I've never heard of him before.
He's had a couple different positions. Usually short-lived.
He's been busy.
Usually short-lived. Thanks for making Locked On NBA your first listen every day. Everydayers, make sure you're subscribed on YouTube, Odyssey, and wherever you get your podcast. Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Go to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube and subscribe to the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel. Have a great weekend.